Hello and welcome into the second episode of Geek Garage Goes to the Movies. I'm, of course, one of the hosts, Ted White.
I'm David, the other host.
That is David, the other host. You, I'm sure, recognize his voice predominantly from the primary podcast, Geek Garage. As we explained last week, this is a new offshoot. We're not going to go back over all that again. Nobody needs to hear all that spiel again. But if you are interested in why we did this, you can definitely check out the first episode.
Yeah.
Which was a retrospective over John Wick 1 and John Wick 2, John Wick Chapter 2, in preparation for the recently released John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, which is a very verbose title.
Right. I was about to say, would it be a spoiler to say what Parabellum translates to? Because, I mean...
I think that's pretty common knowledge.
I didn't know what Parabellum translates to, but at first I was like, oh yeah, it might be a spoiler, but I mean, anyone can go crack open a dictionary or type in Parabellum meaning in the Google machine.
Yes.
Anyways. Yeah.
So Parabellum, of course, comes from a Latin phrase meaning, I can't remember the exact Latin for it, but it basically means if you want peace, it's
prepare for war.
Prepare for war, and
prepare for war.
Right. Parabellum, of course, is the prepare for war.
Prepare for the boogeyman to come and get you.
That is a very apt description of this movie because it is a war on film, basically a one-man wrecking crew that is John Wick.
Hey, we can't discount Halle Berry yet.
We're gonna get there.
Right.
We were fortunate enough. Dave and I were fortunate enough to go see this opening night with a good friend of mine, Luke.
Yes, thank you.
Shout out to my buddy.
Thank you, Luke.
Unfortunately, we were kind of recording this on the fly. We talked about maybe having him on as a guest, but we're trying to get this banged out and
While it's still topical.
Yeah, schedule's not really lining up for that. Like I said, it's kind of on the fly. So when 4 gets released, because I'm sure everybody that's on the internet knows this now, they announced John Wick 4 is coming on May 20th or 21st of 2021.
Right.
I will be there opening night. So Luke, when we do that episode in 3 years, two and a half years, you're on there.
Yeah.
I swear. Thanks again for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Anyway, let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, for sure.
So, opening thoughts.
Yeah.
My opening thoughts of this movie are, I tweeted this within minutes of leaving the theater. This is the best action movie I've ever seen.
No, it's terrible.
You're
Liar!
Wrong. You're wrong and I hate you.
Yes.
Having the benefit of some time passing, I think I stand by that assessment. I think overall this is probably my favorite action movie. Best, of course, is a little more, you can argue quality all day, but I think from an overall standpoint, this is probably my top. I would put the first 30 minutes of this movie up against any other 30 minutes from any action movie you want to throw at it.
Hands down.
And I think it holds up.
I'm sorry, I was about to interject, but I forgot that we were kind of in this phase where...
The no interruption phase, that worked really well in the Avengers podcast you did.
Let's not even go there. Let's not relive terrible episodes.
But which is not to say the rest of the movie doesn't hold up. I just think the way it starts, where the title and the opening credits are only like maybe 30 or 45 seconds. I think that's the perfect length for this kind of movie because it's not, you just, boom, you're in.
Right.
And then it starts. I think the entire movie is very strong, definitely. Like I said, it's probably my favorite action movie that I've ever seen. But those first 30 minutes are special. Special.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, so I will definitely agree with everything that you just said. I So you know how much of a fan I am, and my wife is, and all of my friends are of the MCU and just Marvel movies in general.
Yeah.
I felt more satisfied walking out of this movie for the first time than I did after watching Endgame.
That's because this movie's good, but that's neither here nor there.
But that should speak volumes.
No, but it does say a lot because we've had this discussion before, and obviously the MCU is like this whole huge thing now.
Yeah.
But the fact that you took, you, a self-avowed huge Marvel fan, took more enjoyment out of this than you did out of Endgame. That speaks to how good this movie is.
And that's not a slight on Endgame or the MCU at all. I'm just saying, like, it also helps that this is, yes, it is the third John Wick, but it's also injecting more fresh air into the John Wick franchise.
Definitely.
And plus, the MCU has, 22 movies
and it was 22?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of has that going for it. So, yeah, overall, I thought it was fucking incredible. Like I said, I echo what you said about the first 30 minutes, it just being absolutely spectacular. Like something I've never witnessed or felt before.
I think, the first 30 minutes definitely. I would say the last 30 minutes too. They kind of sandwich the movie really perfectly.
Right.
Now again, the middle 70 or 75 minutes, still really good, still really strong. Right. But just like I said, that first 30 minutes, we were watching it, like I said, we went with my friend Luke, and we were just
how he went on opening night was
that was like a
gift.
Exactly. Yeah. Go, I'm sorry. Go.
No, I mean that's just another opportunity to thank your buddy for getting us in because.
Oh right. So originally, I think it was supposed to be. He had invited me. We talked about going for probably 3 weeks or a month beforehand.
Right.
We even made the joke on the first podcast, like I was an asshole because you weren't going to go.
All right.
I think I don't know if I'm not sure who the third person was. Maybe his old lady or another one of his friends. But something came up where we had that ticket available. It was just kind of serendipitous, so we all got to go. But I remember just all of us sitting there being like, "Holy shit!" and the whole theater's going bonkers.
Right,
you know what I mean?
It wasn't even like a packed theater, like at all.
No, it was maybe 75% full.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I've never been in an action movie like that. I mean, aside from Marvel, where people felt the need to applaud.
Right, and normally when I go to the movies and that stuff happens, I'm like, "Oh, this is so forced and corny," but. I guess that makes me like a piece of shit because I was in there the whole time just like, yeah!
Yeah, you can get them.
Right, and we don't want to get too into spoilers here in these first few minutes. But, I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it's an action movie. There's a lot of bad shit in this action sequences.
Yeah. Just imagine John Wick 1 and John Wick 2, and
those movies got together and did like an 8-ball.
Right.
And then you have John Wick 3.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Right. But no, I thought the pacing was great overall. There wasn't a point in the movie where I thought it was kind of dragging, or I was like, oh, come on, get on with it. Like, for the most part, you might differ a little bit.
We'll talk a little bit more about that as we come on. But for the opening stuff, like I said, we don't want to get too into spoilers right now.
Right.
I would say that starting now, though, if you haven't seen the movie yet, turn the podcast off because we're gonna discuss some of the big events.
We're still kind of. I'm still trying to wrap up my overall thoughts and feelings, and we meant to mention this before that our overall thoughts and feelings were going to be spoiler free.
Right.
But yeah, once we get into the nitty gritty, we're definitely going to get into spoilers. So yeah, just definitely keep that in mind if you don't want to spoil it for you. But yeah, I thought that. How, and we kind of discussed this a little bit the other day, how they don't expand on this whole universe. How they didn't shoot their load right away.
Right.
It gives them breathing room to expand. The John Wick universe and the assassins organization.
The mythology, you might say.
Yeah. It definitely left these movies room to grow and make it believable. at the same time,
right?
Because there's some. I feel like some movies kind of do that on purpose, and you can tell when it thinks it's being cute, and it's like, hey, we left a room in here to make an excuse for this, and blah blah blah, and you're just not buying it.
Yeah, a lot of films like set themselves up where if they have to. If the writers or the studio, whoever decides, if there's a sequel and we want to expand,
right,
like they have to retcon a little bit.
Yeah.
They have to be like, oh, no, gotcha. You know, that's one of the things I love about this series is that, like, it starts out, we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, where it's, the first John Wick is pretty self-contained, right? And then it's like, okay, it builds upon that in 2 in a very logical way where, D'Antonio comes and he's like, oh, John Wick's out of retirement now, so I can pull out this marker.
Right.
It builds in a very logical way, and then that movie builds upon itself for the, 2 hours or so that it runs. And then this one, of course, picks up like 45 minutes or so after 2 ends, chronologically. So it does it, but like I said, it does it in a very, it's not a stilted way. Like, it makes sense. It's very easy to follow what happens, why we're at this point. Now, you can make the argument like, okay, this started, and it's kind of an in-joke in the movie itself. It's one of the trailer lines that made it to the film is like, all this because of a puppy?
Right.
It's kind of a wink-wink, nudge-nudge moment, but, I mean, it makes sense how it got to this point in a really shitty way.
Yeah, for sure. No, one of the things I was kind of in that same right as giving the movies room to grow and expand on its own universe is the mixing up of the mixed martial arts. How there was obviously in John Wick 1 and Chapter 2 there was definitely some different mixed martial arts thrown in. But, he was, for the most part, he was kind of fighting all, Russian, quote-unquote, bad guys. But here you had, he was in Casablanca, he was in New York, I don't know if it was technically Chinatown or...
I think a lot of the New York scenes are supposed to take place in Manhattan.
Right.
On Manhattan.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's like Chinatown specifically, although you definitely see a lot of like... he runs past like the noodle shop,
right? But either way, he's faced up against several different adversaries, if you will, from different backgrounds,
right? I think
which forces him to incorporate different fighting styles,
right? And he has to react and use different fighting styles to kind of their different fighting styles,
yeah, which I really liked about this movie.
I'm definitely not a martial artist. I'm definitely not a martial arts expert.
Me neither.
I do know, based on reading some interviews as well as just knowing a little bit. And again, I think from here on out, we're going to start getting into some spoiler stuff. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, number 1, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
Right.
Number 2, stop right now. Go see it as soon as possible. Then come back and listen to it so we can all geek out over it together.
Exactly.
But back to the martial arts, like the first group of assassins, I believe, are supposed to be like triads. Like I said, they all run out of the noodle house, or at least a large group of them run out of the noodle house that he walks past.
Right.
That looks a lot like what you might consider Chinatown.
Yeah.
So they're using, different Chinese martial arts, and he's countering it with like Aikido, and he uses a lot of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style grappling.
Yeah.
Grappling maneuvers, like the arm locks, and he tries to put a triangle choke on somebody, but I can't remember exactly how that comes about. But yeah, I thought it was really cool, and even the director...
He stabs a motherfucker in the eye.
Yeah, which, funnily enough, that scene is not in the script like that. So the scene where he gets... That fight scene, which is maybe my favorite scene in the whole movie, where they're in the antique store.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of circle back to it, but the eye stab is actually not scripted that way. That came about because Keanu Reeves and the actor in that scene, Tiger Hu Chen, have a bit of a history together. They worked together on The Matrix.
Okay.
They were also in a movie that Keanu did called Man of Tai Chi. So they have a working relationship. Of course, the director, Chad Stahelski, was also Keanu's stunt double as well as the martial arts coordinator on all 3 Matrix movies. So he knows both of them very well, obviously, as well. And I guess when they were sort of blocking that out and setting up how they're going to shoot it, he was like, what if we just stab him in the fucking eye? And they were all just like, fuck yeah, why don't we do that?
Right, stab him in the eye.
And that got one of the more visceral reactions out of our theater when we saw it. Because while the movies have been violent, definitely, that was like one of the more gruesome scenes.
Yeah.
I will say that 3 overall definitely amps up the
gore factor.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the explicitness of the violence.
Right.
Like there's the eye stab we're talking about. There's a couple of
the
guys
head stab.
The guys get stabbed in the skull.
Right, like 60 seconds before that.
Right. Yeah. The hatchet to the head that ends that scene.
Oh yeah. There's just so many gruesome stabbings just within that scene.
Like I said, I think that happens within the first, 20 minutes of the movie. That scene where they're in the antique store because he's running.
And that single fucking gunshot where he's piecing together that gun.
That is a perfect nod. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a perfect nod to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where Tuco does the same thing. He, that Eli Wallach's character Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he's raiding like a gun store in this old west town, and to get a gun that he wants, he just basically takes all of them apart and like cobbles one, Frankenstein's one together, which Wick does basically the same thing. Gets one bullet in, spins it, boom, one shots the guy that's busting in the door. That was one of everybody in the theater was like, fuck yeah!
Right. That's what pretty much set everything off. In the movie. I mean, aside from taking down like Big Ben and in the library. I mean, Ben wasn't his name.
Oh, yeah, that's Ernest, played by Boban Marjanovic. He's the backup center for the Philadelphia 76ers. So when I saw him, I was like, is that fucking Boban? Sure as shit it was.
Backup what?
Center for the Philadelphia 76ers, the NBA team.
Yeah, that dude is a large dude.
Yeah, he's over 7 feet tall. And which is interesting because like it shows that it's just another guy of a different size that Wick can fight. Because, all the Russian guys were roughly his size in the first one.
Right.
There's a little bit of variety, but, like, he and Common are about the same size.
Yeah.
So, in this one, there's a huge variety. Like, it goes from the character of Ernest, played by Boban, who's, like, 7 feet plus, down to the Shinobis, who are the, basically, numbers 1 and 2 to 0, who is the main, like, big bad.
Yeah.
Those guys are both 5'1", 5'2". They're very short.
Yes, shorter than me.
Comparable to like Keanu at least.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But just when the whole antique store is maybe my favorite sequence when he's trying to wrestle the guns away from him, and they both stop and look and realize that they're surrounded by knives. Yeah. And they just start breaking out the glass and throwing knives at one another, and like some of them are hitting, some of them are bouncing off because they take the wrong angle. And then he just fucking like doom, 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 like hits that one guy with like 5 of them in a couple of seconds. I was like,
the fact that knives were bouncing off of each other was definitely something that I picked up more on the second viewing, and I think adds to the authenticity of that
100%
scene.
Agree.
Because I don't know if it was shot like that, and those parts were kept in there to add to the feeling like. They're not perfect marksmen, and it's in the heat of the moment, so, not every single knife that they throw is going to, hit its target. So the fact that some were bouncing off, it didn't even hit me as like, oh, well, that's like a goof or whatever. To me, it added to, like I said, the authenticity.
No, I agree 100% because you can't assume, like, everything you do is going to be 100% right all the time.
Right.
And I've seen a ton of movies, and I can't, off the top of my head, think of one that showed it like that. Generally, if you see a movie, especially about like a super assassin like Wick, everything they do is 100% perfect. Like, they always hit their shot every time. The knife always lodges exactly where it's supposed to. And on these, you know, they're throwing them, and it adds to it feeling hectic because they're like, oh shit, you know, this is life or death. So your adrenaline's running 1,000 miles an hour,
right.
And then, like, you know, like you said, it adds to the kind of realism about it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I do like at the end of that where we talked about the knife to the eye, and then he looks, he's getting ready to walk out, and the guy's like, and pulling the knife out of his chest. He picks up the fucking tomahawk. Right. And just like right into his skull with it.
Yeah,
that got a big cheer out of the crowd too.
Right.
But I think from that, and then I believe right after that, it goes into the stables. That sequence is probably my favorite of the film. Death by horse kick.
Yeah, that's
fucking insane.
That's a way to go.
Yeah. A really funny thing about that is, so the director, I read an interview for, I can't remember, I wish I could remember what publication this was with that he did this interview, but he said...
17.
You know, yes. It was actually Us Weekly.
Right.
Thank you.
The Inquirer.
Right. Yes. He gave this interview where he said, you know, before we even had the script, I had the idea for Keanu on horseback because I knew he could ride horses, and I just thought, okay, what a great scene would be, like he's escaping Manhattan, riding a horse out.
Yeah.
You know. So he said, I'm in Central Park taking a tour, and I asked the tour guide, like, where do you keep the horses? And we go over, and I'm expecting the stables to be like stables. You know what I mean? Like regular stables that you would see wherever. He was like, no, these were like, this was like a 5-story apartment building, these stables did. So the second we got there, I was like, we're shooting here. And he goes and he talks about, you know, looking through and speaking with the horse, I guess like trainers or stable hands or what have you.
Yeah.
And they're explaining like what the horses can do, and they're like, oh, they can kick on command. And he's like, show me.
Do what?
Right. It was just like light bulbs go off.
Yeah.
And man. Whew.
Yeah. Some motherfuckers got kicked in those scenes.
Yeah. Where he fucking kicks the dude so hard that he like goes into puts a hole in the wall basically.
Yeah.
And Stileski further talked about having been kicked by a horse on set, not for this movie, but for a previous movie. He was like, luckily it caught me like in the shoulder. He's like, but man, it fucked me up.
Oh yeah.
And that's legit. Horse kicks are serious shit.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine being able to really walk away from any sort of horse kick injury.
Right.
I'm like, it just isn't fathomable to me. Like, yeah, that's why I stay away from horses.
Right.
They're beautiful, magnificent creatures
that will kill you dead if you fuck with them wrong.
Right. Which is why I stick to my dogs. I mean, they will kill you dead if you do them wrong, but
and we'll get to that.
But they're also good boys.
Yes, even the ones that kill you dead if you're a bad person in John Wick 3.
Right. Yes.
Which John Wick 3 does feature a couple of very good boys that we'll get to.
Yes.
One, you know, we mentioned the nod to The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. There's actually a few different nods to different films that I picked up.
None of which I picked up. So I'm.
That says either something very poorly about you or very poorly about me. I'm not sure which.
Well, split the difference.
Right. Would come out even.
Yeah.
In the first few minutes where he's running through New York and before the excommunicado has taken effect, it keeps cutting back between, of course, him running, trying to get his affairs in order and get a few different things. Right. And then it cuts back to the Continental, or at least I think they're part of the Continental, like the administrative unit that you see a little bit in Wick 1 and Wick 2. That handle all the
I don't know if it's ever established where the administration is located.
Yeah, so maybe I just assumed they were in the Continental because you see them a lot around Continental scenes, but it never shows them explicitly as being in the Continental because they're always like called. Somebody always calls them, but regardless, it goes to her it cuts back to the administration team and the lady that is making all the announcements, like John Wick excommunicado in X minutes.
Yeah.
That reminded me a lot of the Warriors from '79, I think it was, where the gang, the Warriors, are on the run trying to make it back to their home turf.
Okay.
And throughout the movie, as they go through different parts of New York and they're accosted by different gangs, it cuts to a woman in silhouette, like a radio DJ. And basically she's talking on the radio about, oh, the Warriors made it past whatever gang and now they're moving on to this. You only have so much time before they make it back. I don't know that it was like an explicit nod that they wrote it that way. It just is what it reminded me of, which I thought was really cool because I love The Warriors, which is a very good B movie.
Yeah. I'll talk about a couple of my favorite scenes.
Okay. Yeah.
So there really wasn't an action sequence or action scene that I didn't like. There were certainly levels, but like, so for instance, the main action sequence in Casablanca with Halle Berry when
where they're in like the courtyard of sorts.
Yeah, that wherever that is, they're just taking down dudes left and right. That was pretty damn incredible, but it didn't necessarily feel like more of the same because it obviously wasn't. John Wick had help plus 2 dogs.
Very good boys.
Yes, very good boys. But it did kind of feel like, a throwback to the traditional just group fight insanity that we've come accustomed to with the John Wick films.
Right.
So it kind of had that going for it of, like it not necessarily separating itself completely as 100% brand new. Like I said, it still has plenty going for it as something new and something to set it apart. But just for me, it was, I don't know, it kind of felt like it was tied into more of the same. But what the fuck do I know? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just some guy.
Right. No, I really like that scene a lot as well. You actually pointed out one of the takes in that is 28 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's 28 seconds. Yeah. I counted plus or minus a second or two.
Right. But it follows Halle Berry, who plays Sophia as she goes through and takes out a few guys.
Like a fucking badass.
Yeah. I actually remember thinking to myself, like, as I'm watching this, I may have said this out loud. I was just like, I'm in love.
Yeah. She was amazing.
Yeah. Halle Berry is one of my first crushes and will probably be a lifetime crush. She is amazing.
Pretty great. Yeah. Pretty great.
Amazing in every way imaginable.
Yes.
Very talented and very beautiful. But,
right.
What I like about that is it's not like a super long take, so it's not like one of these really extravagant, like, oh, this take is 5 minutes long and it's action-packed. Like, it's only about 30 seconds, like we talked about, but it's legitimately action-packed. The camera never stops moving for the entire duration of it. Something's always going on, which is just a testament to the skill and the planning that went into this, because obviously the choreography is next level. It's a John Wick film.
Right.
Which, to me, we talked about this a little bit off, before we started recording. Yeah. That I would rather a really, really solid 30-second long take than like an okay 5-minute take. I think a lot of the long takes that get ballied about are kind of, Some of them are really good, like the hallway fight in Old Boy.
Yeah.
The original good Old Boy.
Right.
That one deserves all the hype. But there are some other ones that I'm just like, okay, I mean, this could have been like 2 or 3 easy cuts and it would have been just as good or maybe better.
Sure.
It just seems kind of like it's like masturbatory almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So, I mean, not to kind of go back to the knife scene or the scene at the knife and gun shop at the beginning, but I did have a couple quick notes jotted down about that. How well, maybe I didn't. It basically just how my favorite scenes. It's either it's a tie between either that scene or the administrative suite at the very end. That the
huge like glass room,
right? Yeah. The long sequence of him basically fighting both figurative and literal levels of bosses or, whatever you want to call them, where, he has the first level where he basically has his ass handed to him because, he goes from firing close range with, a fucking tactical armor piercing shotgun to having to fight, Japanese swordsmen. And so yeah, he has his ass handed to him through numerous panes of glass. But, he obviously ends up coming out on top.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth, but I think just out of the artistic level and the amount of thought and planning and everything that went in, I can imagine went into building that set and filming that sequence. I probably have to give it my favorite,
right?
My gold medal.
I like that scene a lot as well. It's got I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce their names because I'm afraid that I'm going to do it incorrectly, and I don't want to do those guys injustice. But
because they were amazing,
they're both. They were in the Raid films, which I know you haven't seen. Those are on our watch list.
It's definitely on my. Isn't on it? It should be on Netflix. The first
Raid is on Netflix.
Okay.
I have both of them on Blu-ray, so
I might fucking just check that out tonight.
Yeah, dude, it's 100% worth it. It's basically like. Imagine John Wick, but Indonesian.
Okay.
I believe the movie is Indonesian. I believe it's an Indonesian production. But anyway, so both of those guys, their characters called Shinobi 1 and 2. They're basically, like I said earlier, Mark Dacascos, who plays Zero, they're basically like his numbers 1 and 2 henchmen.
Okay. His character is called Zero?
Yeah. I don't know if he's ever named in the film, but that's what he's credited as.
Okay.
I can't recall if he's ever.
I don't think so.
I don't think he is, but his character is named Zero. That's what it's credited as.
You could label him as John Wick's #1 fan.
Yeah,
because he makes that apparent.
There's a great scene where he's just like, on man, that's what makes you special. It's great to meet you, and he sets him with him on the couch in the Continental, and he's just like.
Yeah, he just has like 15 demeanor changes within like 3 minutes.
And we're kind of stepping on what we were talking about with the final sort of big fight scenes, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Just because I love this character, the Zero character, so much because it would have been so easy to make him just like generic, Japanese martial arts character number 4.
Right.
Where like he's stoic and silent. I mean, like we've seen that 10,000 times. Yeah. And while that's cool, and I love martial arts movies and characters like that,
they decided to make him dynamic.
Right. Yeah, and he's way more interesting as a character because of that. So like he goes from being when he's first introduced, he's running a sushi stand somewhere in Manhattan. He's got like J-pop playing. It's a basic sushi stand. And he's very kind of stoic when the adjudicator character says, basically, we want you to kill John Wick.
Yeah.
He says the line, I have served, I will be of service, which is a recurring line throughout the film with regards to the high table. And then his people go to fucking work.
Like fucking champs.
Right.
They take out everyone at that ballet studio like a hot knife through fucking butter.
Right. Yeah. They're just running roughshod over everybody. But yeah, like you said, he's got a lot of demeanor changes. So he goes from being like the badass to fanboying over meeting John Wick.
Yeah.
He's just like, essentially, I gotta be honest, I love you, man. You're the best.
You have not disappointed.
You have not disappointed, man. He's funny, but he's not like comic relief.
Right.
He's not played as an idiot for comedy.
Yeah.
He's a badass, but he's got some range. And like I said, I love Mark Dacascos, who plays him. He's not a super well-known actor. He's done a lot of different stuff. He was, I think, probably what the most people would have seen. He had a recurring character on the Hawaii Five-0 reboot.
I
never really watched that either. But I would say, that was a network show, so I would say probably a lot of people would recognize him from that. But he's been in a lot of different stuff. And he's done like stunt choreography for a lot of different stuff as well. But he just seems like a good guy in real life, as they say. Sure. So I've been a big fan of his for a while. But his character in this is great. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of funny lines, but again, it never crosses over into that comic relief territory.
Yeah, it never ever comes off as like corny or over the top or eye rolly, like come on, like just forced overall. Right, You never feel like they're trying to make you laugh or break up tension, which is something that I cannot handle in serious movies.
And yet you like the Marvel Universe.
I like a lot of things and I forgive a lot of things. It's something that I'm kind of going through right now as far as being less forgiving. I don't know. Who knows what the future holds, right. Ted?
But I did love his character. And anyway, back to the kind of final fight sequences.
Yeah.
Both of those guys from the Raid films, they tag up and basically beat the piss out of John Wick.
Right.
But they do so in a really interesting way where a little bit before this, a couple of scenes before this, Zero has said, you die by my blade alone. No one else kills you.
Right.
So these guys are more or less toying with Wick. Like, they're beating the shit out of him, but they know they're not going to kill him because their master has said he dies by my hand.
Right. And there's also some obvious reverence there, too.
Right.
Like letting him stand all the way back up before, like, attacking him instead of, like, getting cheap shots. Like, exactly. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Right.
And you pointed out that one particular instance of that happened to be I don't know what do you call it, blooper or like a little slip up, quite literally, and they just left it in.
Yeah, one of the times they kick him through one of the display cases, and so in the script, Keanu's supposed to just jump right back up. Wick's supposed to just jump right back up. Right. But he slipped in real life. Keanu slipped on one of the shards of sugar glass and played it off for a really good comedic beat where he like catches himself and they look like they're going to move to help him and he holds up his hands. He's like, no. Right. And then he gets up a little slowly, which, if I had seen that, if I were on set and I'd seen that, I would be like, oh, that's kind of funny. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that fits the fight perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like at this point in the movie, he's had the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
He's catching his breath. They even mentioned they're like he was retired for 5 years. He's older,
but he's still John Wick.
But he's still John Wick, exactly. Right. You were talking about they seem to have kind of a reverence for him. There's even that one spot where they knock him down and they're like, "Oh, it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Wick." The same as Zero said. And they help him up. And they help him up, and they're like, "Okay, are you ready?" And they get ready, and then they fire on it. It's fucking glorious.
Yeah, just all of those just little minute details like that thrown in, and the big things, and just the choreography and everything helps make that, like I said, now my favorite action sequence of the movie.
Right. That sequence where he's ascending the stairs, like you said, to both literal and figurative levels. That's another nod to Game of Death, a Bruce Lee film. Because he does the same thing where he walks up to the next level. There's also the famous fight in that with Bruce Lee and Wilt Chamberlain, which is sort of alluded to in the beginning of Wick, where he fights Boban, who plays Ernest, who's there's a huge height differential there as well. So there's a couple nods to Game of Death there. Like I said, there's a lot of really good nods to other like progenitors of this type of movie
that I didn't pick up on because I'm a piece of shit and I haven't seen a whole lot of martial arts movies.
You're not necessarily a piece of shit, dude. I'm a fucking martial arts geek. All right, like I will watch bad martial arts dubs just because I need my fix. All right.
Yeah, I definitely need you to make me a list of stuff. I mean, I know I've had the Raid on my Netflix queue for quite some time, so I'll definitely be checking that out. So we've kind of gushed over this for about 40 minutes or so, give or take. You want to kind of glaze over one or two things that we weren't huge fans of, and I think we we at least have
there's at least one we agree on.
Yeah, there's one common denominator between us that we agree on.
So as much as I love this movie, it's not perfect. No movie is.
Nope.
There are really 3 things about it that I personally think could have been better. First 2 are relatively minor. The third one is a bigger part of it. So the first, I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays Sophia's boss that they go see or former boss that they go see in Morocco. He was also on that actor was also on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he was Bronn in Game of Thrones. Not Bran. Bronn.
Right.
The guy that wants his castle. That, spoiler alert, got his castle. He just shows up at the fucking end and he's like, hey, I'm here.
Remember me?
Yeah. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Like you weren't even in the craziest battle episode of the entire series.
Yeah. His Italian accent, at least I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be an Italian accent, is fucking bad.
I didn't even know what accent he was trying to do. It was not good. But I mean, it didn't bother me a whole lot. Like, I guess maybe because I didn't know what accent he was trying to do.
It didn't take me out of the movie. Like, I'm not saying, like, the movie sucks because of this.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I was like, in the movie that's this good, that could be better.
Could have been better, yeah.
I think this movie is maybe 5 minutes too long.
Okay.
I think some of the stuff in Morocco, not the fight scene that we talked about with Halle Berry in there in the courtyard that we both really liked, but I think you could probably cut a couple minutes out of it. You could probably cut a couple other minutes out of the rest of it. So I think maybe it's about 5 minutes too long.
Yeah, I don't know if you necessarily need the back alley sequence of those guys trying to jump him before he can get safely delivered to Halle Berry's character. I don't know if you necessarily need that. I mean, I didn't mind it, but
it's not bad. It's just,
if you're looking to cut fat, I'd say that's definitely a place to.
It's kind of a cool little scene, but at the same time, it's like we've kind of seen something else that's better than this.
Yeah.
Both prior to it and also we'll see something that's cooler than this after it. So I think we could have maybe done without it.
Right.
The last one, Asia Kate Dillon. I believe it's spelled Asia. I believe it's pronounced Asia Kate Dillon.
So sorry, Asia, if we're not saying
if we're not saying the name correctly, our apologies. I'm not a big fan of that portrayal of the adjudicator.
Yeah. We kind of discussed this, and I kind of came up with a solution that it should have been played by Carrie-Anne Moss. I feel like she would have been able to portray, especially with her portrayal of, and I meant to look up her character's name, and she plays the reoccurring role in Daredevil and Iron Fist and all the other Netflix Marvel shows as that head lawyer. But I feel like just her overall demeanor and not necessarily how she gets typecast, but just the ability that she has to play that stern character.
So I wasn't super familiar with Asia Kate Dillon as an actor prior to this. I know that they had been in Orange is the New Black, which I never really got into, as well as they are on a show called Billions Now, which is on Showtime, which, again, I've not seen, but is apparently very, very good.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Not super familiar with their work. I don't have anything against the way they played the adjudicator necessarily, and I think that they played as it was written. So, you know, you mentioned sort of a very silent, powerful,
right?
You know,
yeah, I didn't have
confident,
right. I didn't have a whole lot of issues with like the character in general.
Right.
I mean, like she was kind of a neat character, and a very different demeanor than a lot of other characters that we've met thus far. But
it seemed like their portrayal kind of went from super stoic, like you need to fear me, to some of the facial expressions and line delivery kind of vacillated between, like I said, like the super quiet badass, like you need to fear me because of who I represent and who I work for.
Right.
Some of them came off as kind of corny, almost. Like where they're having the parlay at the end with Winston, right after that, and the character says, or I'm sorry, during the parlay, and this kind of look comes over the face, and they're like, "Oh, you were playing from a position of strength," and like that line isn't bad, but I think the way it was delivered, again, I wasn't a huge fan of the portrayal.
I'm glad that you mentioned something about that, because I thought it was just dumb. I was like, wait, did I miss something? Because that line seems either like too early, too late, or out of place. So I'm glad that you said something about that particular line, because I was like, wait a second.
Right. Like I said, I agree. I think I think we agreed Carrie-Anne Moss would have been great for that. And it would have also been another nice little nod to The Matrix, which this series and this movie in particular is very full of.
Yeah. I mean, it would have brought back the Holy Trinity, Morpheus, Neo, and yeah, right.
That said, I think really what about the portrayal I was not a huge fan of is, like I said, just it seemed like they were trying to do too much with it, where it started as sort of, like I said, the stoic badass fear me, and then it kind of got a little more into the, I don't know, there were a couple times, like the one I mentioned in the parlay, where I did not take the character seriously. I was like, I do not care who you work for. You were not intimidating at all.
Right.
That said, the adjudicators, I guess, like clothing and appearance and everything, I thought was great.
Yeah.
It was very different from the rest of the characters. I thought that worked really well. It's just some of the line readings, I was like, I feel like a different person could do this in a better way.
Yeah.
Or if maybe they had done another take, this could have been sealed differently.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, that's the most major, I guess, complaint I have, and it's still fairly, I don't think it's a huge one necessarily.
Yeah, I'll agree. It's definitely not enough for me to knock this movie down a peg or at all.
Right. To me, this is still like a 9.75 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we could gush about this movie for hours. I mean, we could just go through, like, pull up the script and kind of just
line by line, like, this was awesome.
Right, this was awesome. This was awesome.
This was the best part. No, this was the best part.
Right.
Yeah.
But for the sake of brevity and just not doing that, I think we'll refrain from doing that. So
yeah, so I think we kind of covered a lot of the main points of the movie we wanted to talk about,
right,
in terms of the script and the movie itself. I know we did a little bit of the bare minimum of looking at different facts and things that I picked up, or that you or I might have picked up watching the movie. What do you think the budget for this was? If you had to guess, what do you think it would be?
Let's see. So we said the first one was 20 and
the second
then
one was 40.
I'm going to say north of 90.
You are not close.
As in
You're way over.
Way over.
Way over.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. 60.
You're still over. You're 50? A lot closer.
50?
55.
Wow.
This movie was made for $55 million.
Wow.
Think about that. Now that's still an absurd amount of money for the average person to conceive, but for a movie of this scale,
right,
that's pennies, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little over double what John Wick 1 cost to make.
Mm-hmm.
The number we use is 20. I saw a few different numbers between 20 and 30. But even if you consider it to be 25, we'll split the difference. That's still a little over double what John Wick 1 was.
Right.
2 was about $40 million, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. So it's only $15 million more dollars. And you got 30% more action at least.
Yeah.
And different scenes and globetrotting. So that's insane to me. So it basically made its production budget back in the first weekend because it banked about $56 million opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. The first movie to dethrone Endgame.
Yes.
John Wick killed Thanos.
Yeah,
that's my official headcanon.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely worth noting that John Wick was the one that knocked Endgame out of place.
Now, granted, and I don't want all the MCU fanboys and fangirls coming after us. Obviously, Endgame is going gangbusters and making oodles and oodles of money that all three John Wick movies put together can't compete with. Mm-hmm. But it's still noteworthy that this is the first movie, because Detective Pikachu came out the week before, and I think it did fairly well, but Endgame still was going strong.
Right.
Just a neat little thing. We talked a little, or I mentioned the opening weekend of about $56 million for this movie, a little over $56 million. Mm-hmm. That is double what John Wick 2 opened to, opening weekend, and about 4 times what John Wick 1 opened at. So John Wick 1 opening weekend was about $14.5 million. Chapter 2 was about $30.4 million, and then this one was $56.8 million. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty insane growth.
Yeah.
For the course of 3 movies, really. Not entirely unprecedented, but still pretty amazing.
Right.
Something I noticed, and maybe this is just me wishing that it was a thing. We talked a little bit about this, but the character of the administrator, who is played by Robin something, I can't remember. I think it's Robin something. He plays the Penguin on the show Gotham.
That's right.
Yeah,
yeah. I thought
he's been in some other things.
I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah, he's been in some other things as well, but I think that's probably what he's best known for.
Right.
He had a little tattoo under one of his eyes. It reminded me a lot of the Clockwork Orange poster.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that it was an exact nod, but it did remind me of that.
Well, actually, Clockwork Orange had emphasis on the eyelashes, not on the eyeliner.
Yeah, David made the point. It's just like he's really bad at putting on eyeliner.
He's just like, ugh.
Right. Mark Dacascos, who played Zero, we talked about, he took the role without ever reading the script. He said, I was just such a huge fan of the first 2 movies. When they offered, I was like, yes, I will be in this movie. Yes. I don't care.
Right. I will be the dude picking up garbage outside.
Right. I will be the catering team. Yeah. Literally. I was the Iron Chef. There are, of course, a lot of nods to The Matrix. The line we talked about on the last podcast where Keanu says guns. Lots of guns. That's a direct line from The Matrix.
Right.
The final shootout in the Continental, when they kill the power, everything's bathed in green light. What other movie have we seen that in?
Yeah, I don't know, a couple.
A couple of them. I think it was a trilogy.
Yes.
And then, of course, the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne. There's a scene where he's in the rain, which is a direct callback to the first Matrix, where he's been kidnapped by the agents and he's in the rain. Mm-hmm. I don't know that this was a nod. This may just be a fairly common Russian name, but the Tarkovsky Theater that Wick goes to, that might be a nod to the director, I believe it's Andrei Tarkovsky, Russian director who made Stalker, which is an incredible sci-fi movie. He also made the original Solaris, which is also an incredible sci-fi movie. Highly recommend anybody who's into sci-fi check those out. They're very cerebral, so don't go in expecting something like Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that.
Yeah.
They're definitely like more art house, but very, very good movies.
Okay.
All right, so I think I have just about exhausted everything for this movie.
Me dose.
I really can't say enough good things about it. I love it. I can't wait for 4. They just announced. We talked a little bit about that at the top.
Looks like they're trying to keep in the habit of releasing every other year.
Every couple of years, yeah. I know that Chad Stahelski and Keanu both have said that they'll keep making these movies as long as there is a demand for them, and I can promise you that as long as they're making them, I will be there opening night.
Yes.
Yeah, I can guarantee that.
Me as well.
So that's it. Highly, highly recommended for me. I think David agrees.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Wholeheartedly.
I've seen it twice. It was awesome both times. Every part from the first one, every part that I saw in the first viewing held up for the second viewing, and I caught a couple of different neat little things. Like, I didn't notice this the first time, but in a Continental shootout, where they're facing all the high table guards that are in body armor, he runs up to one of the guys that has been knocked down, opens up his visor and pops him twice in the face and then closes the visor and runs off. I didn't notice that the first time, and I about fell out of my fucking chair watching it the second time.
I feel like I know what part you're talking about, but or at least I can picture it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can't exactly recall that, but
yeah. I saw that. I had to cover my face so I didn't start laughing out loud. Legitimately LOLing.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's a wrap on John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum.
Yeah.
Look forward to Chapter 4.
We'll see the boogeyman in a couple years.
Yeah.
2021.
2021. I'm excited for it. Now for our segment, our regular segment that is
shit that doesn't suck.
Right, shit that doesn't suck. David, you want to start off this week?
Yeah, sure. It's nothing new. Stranger Things 2. I wanted to rewatch the second season. I watched the first season twice, and I wanted to catch the second season a second time before Season 3 comes out. It's right around the corner. I believe July 4th is the premiere date. So I just wanted to kind of get a second viewing of that in before Season 3 starts. I know everyone's super excited. I'm super excited. I'm hoping that they kind of mix it up a little bit. Do something different. I don't know. The second season wasn't bad, but the first season was a little bit better. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, that's my shit that doesn't suck.
Okay.
Ted.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go way out of left field.
Okay.
As you know, as we've talked about both on the podcast and just in general conversation, I'm into weird shit. Mm-hmm. I have a very diverse array of interests, particularly in terms of cinema. So recently, I watched a film called Hiroshima Mon Amour. It is a French romantic drama directed by Alain Resnais. That's about a French woman and a Japanese man. They have a romantic relationship with the backdrop of the aftermath of the Hiroshima bombings at the end of World War II. It's definitely what you would call like an art house film.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's shot very beautifully in black and white. I watched that the other night. Enjoyed it immensely. So that's my...
what did you watch it on?
So it's on the Criterion channel.
That's right.
Which is $10 or $12 a month. I'm sure that even if you're not offhand familiar with what Criterion is, you've probably seen their collection out in the stores. Mm-hmm. They're
usually the most expensive way to buy movies.
Right. Well, they are pricey, but you do get a lot of bang for your buck. So not only do you get the movie, but it's usually been restored. There's usually a lot of like commentary tracks or like booklets that come with them or different stuff. So you get a lot for your money. But if you're into classic film, foreign film, I highly recommend that. They've got a very diverse selection of genres from all across the country, all across the world, all different countries around the world. It's definitely worth it. Like I said, I'm a movie snob, so I found a bunch of good stuff on there.
And you know what they do have? Godzilla. And you know what that is? A good segue.
It is a good segue to our next episode.
Yes.
Coming very soon, where we will do a bit of a retrospective. Retrospective is not really the right word, but we'll talk about the character of Godzilla as well as some of the earlier films, and then look forward to what looks to be fucking phenomenal is Godzilla King of Monsters.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting episode. I have my homework set out for me.
Yeah, when we were talking about this, doing this episode, I think I listed you like 4 or 5 must-watch movies.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I need to check out, but I'm excited because I'm always down to check out new movies or old movies that have been around for a while but are new to me. So yeah, I'm stoked to this episode. I know we just did a retrospective, but I feel like it's not necessarily a retrospective because it's more on the history of Godzilla in film.
So we're not gonna just be like, oh, in the original Godzilla, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, because there have been like I think 27 or 28 Godzilla movies.
A lot.
It would just be insanity to do that. You could do a podcast based just on the Godzilla mythos, or like an entire
if we
podcast
were crazy
series,
enough.
Right? So, like I said, we'll talk about the character and some of the major major happenings of the series, and we'll look forward to, again, what looks to be fucking phenomenal.
Right.
My final thoughts about that are King Ghidorah for life, and I'm out.
Yeah. Like always, please feel free to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or any other place you find podcasts or listen to them. Make sure you go to our website, geekgaragepodcast.com, for all kinds of other cool-ass content. You follow and like us on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And, be kind, stay geeky, eat lots of cheesecake, do all that fun shit.
And thank you again, Luke. You're the man.
Yes. Thanks, Luke.